Help me. Two simple words. Words that instantly trigger something deep inside us. A need to help. A need to get closer. But what happens when the thing calling for help isn't human? Turn off the lights, get comfortable, and remember, not every cry for help comes from someone who needs saving. We were 4 days into a week-long camping trip in the Chuska Mountains when Danny first heard it. I want to be clear about something before I get into this. Danny is not the kind of person who spooks easily. He grew up in rural New Mexico. He's been hunting since he was 9. He's the guy who stays calm when everyone else is panicking, the guy you want next to you when things go wrong. When Danny says something scared him, you listen. We were sitting around the fire, me, Danny, his girlfriend Priya, and our friend Marcus, when Danny went quiet in the middle of a sentence. Just stopped talking and stared out past the tree line. "What?" Marcus said. "Did you hear that?" We listened, wind in the pines, the fire crackling, nothing else. "Hear what?" Priya said. Danny shook his head slowly. "Probably nothing." But he didn't look like it was nothing. He looked like a man doing math in his head and not liking the answer. We're all in our late 20s. The trip was Marcus's idea. He'd been going through a rough divorce and needed to get out of the city, and we'd all agreed that a week off the grid was exactly what everyone needed. No cell service, no internet, nothing but mountains and trees and the kind of silence that cleans you out. The Chuskas sit on the Navajo Nation. Danny has Dene ancestry on his mother's side, which is part of why he suggested the specific location. He knows the land. He respects it in a way that the rest of us, raised on concrete and convenience, don't entirely understand but try to follow his lead on. He had one rule when we arrived: don't be loud after dark, don't draw attention. We thought he meant bears. The second night was when I heard it. We'd gone to bed around 10. I was in the tent I was sharing with Marcus, almost asleep, when it drifted in from somewhere out in the dark. A voice, human, distant. "Help me." I sat up. "Help me." I unzipped the tent before I'd fully thought it through. Danny was already outside, standing perfectly still, facing the trees. He'd clearly been awake. "Someone's out there," I said. "We have to." "No," his voice was flat, final. "Danny, someone is." "Keep your voice down." He turned to look at me and his expression stopped me cold. I have known Danny for 11 years. I have never seen him look like that. "Get back in the tent. Don't make any noise. Don't use your flashlight. There's someone out there asking for help." "No," he said very quietly, "there isn't." I stood there for a moment, listening. The voice came again, from a slightly different direction than before. "Help me." Something was wrong with it. I couldn't name it at first. It was clearly a human voice, the right pitch, the right cadence, 2 recognizable English words. But there was something underneath it that made my spine go cold. Something about the way it landed, like a recording of the words rather than someone actually saying them. Like something that had heard the words and was producing the sounds without understanding what they meant. I got back in the tent. I didn't sleep. In the morning, Danny explained. Not everything. I don't think he was willing to say everything, but enough. He told us about the Yi Naldlusha, what outsiders call skinwalkers. He told us they were real, that his grandmother had told him about them since he was small, that there were things in these mountains that were not what they appeared to be. Marcus laughed, not meanly, more nervously. "You're telling me a skinwalker was outside our camp last night?" "I'm telling you something was," Danny said. "And I'm telling you that if you had gone out there, it would have been very bad." "How do you know it wasn't just someone who needed help?" Danny looked at him for a long moment, because of what it was saying. He let that sit. Then he said, "These things, they learn sounds. They mimic what they hear. They're not like animals that learn calls. They specifically learn human sounds." He paused. Think about what sounds a human makes when one of these things finds them. The fire popped. "Help me," Priya said quietly. She'd gone pale. Danny nodded. That's what it knows, that's what it's heard, over and over for a long time. He looked out at the trees. That's the only reason it says it. Nobody spoke for a while. Marcus, to his credit, did not laugh again. "We should have left that morning. I want to be honest about that. We had enough information to make the right call, and we didn't make it, and what happened next is partly on us for that reason." Danny wanted to go. Priya wanted to go. Marcus and I convinced them to stay. One more day, we said we'd be careful, we'd be quiet, we wouldn't go out after dark. I think we both still hadn't fully accepted what Danny was telling us. Not really. It's one thing to hear something wrong in the dark and feel afraid. It's another thing, in the daylight, with the fire going and coffee in your hand, to fully believe that something inhuman spent the night circling your camp. We stayed. The third night it got closer. I know this because I could hear it moving. Not in an animal way. Animals have a logic to how they move through underbrush, a pattern that makes sense. This was different. It would be still for a long time, and then it would be somewhere else, with no sound of transition, as though it had decided to be in a different place and simply was. "Help me." Closer now, maybe 40 feet from the tent. "Help me." 30. I was lying completely still with my eyes open in the dark, listening to Marcus breathe beside me, when I became aware of something that made every hair on my body stand up at once. The voice was coming from two directions. Not alternating, simultaneously. Two voices, identical, both saying the same words, slightly out of sync with each other. "Help me, help me." I grabbed Marcus's arm. He was already awake. Neither of us moved. It stayed outside the tent for what felt like an hour. Probably wasn't. Probably 15 minutes at most. But time moves differently when you're lying still in the dark, trying not to breathe too loud, listening to something that learned its only words from dying people circle your tent in the dark. Then it was gone. Not gradually, just gone. We left before dawn. Danny had us packed and moving while it was still dark, which felt wrong. I wanted light. I wanted to be able to see, but he said movement was safer than staying. He let us out with one small flashlight, keeping the beam low, and none of us spoke the entire 2-mile walk to the trailhead. We were almost to the cars when Priya grabbed Danny's arm. At the edge of the tree line, maybe 60 feet away, something was standing in the pre-dawn gray. It was tall. Too tall. The proportions were almost human, but not quite. The limbs a little long, the head sitting at a slight angle on the neck, like something that had learned the shape of a person from a description rather than observation. It was still. It was watching us. Danny kept walking, slow, steady. He didn't look at it directly. He said quietly without turning his head, "Don't look at it, don't stop walking, get in the cars." I looked anyway. I wish I hadn't. Because in the moment before I forced my eyes away, it moved, not toward us, just shifted its weight, a small adjustment, and I heard it very softly from across that 60 feet of gray morning air. "Help me." And the thing that will stay with me, the thing I can't stop thinking about even now, weeks later, safe in my apartment with the lights on. It sounded hopeful. Like something that had been saying those words for a very long time, to many people, in many situations, and had learned that the words worked. Had learned that those words made people come closer. We've talked about it since, the four of us. Danny more than anyone. He told me something a few days after we got back when we were alone that he hadn't said in front of the others. He said his grandmother told him that the reason they learned those words, specifically those words, is because of frequency. They learn what they hear most often, and what they hear most often from humans, in the specific situations where they encounter humans, is a person at the end of their options. A person realizing in the last moments before the end that they need someone to come. Help me. He said his grandmother told him the worst part isn't that they say it. The worst part is that at some point, in the very beginning, a very long time ago, one of them heard it for the first time and came closer to see what it meant and learned. I don't go camping anymore. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm most of the way asleep and the apartment is quiet, I think about that thing standing at the tree line in the gray morning light. I think about how still it was. I think about how long it must have been doing this, how many camps it had circled, how many people had heard those two words drift out of the dark and made the mistake of going toward them. I think about how it sounded hopeful. And I turn on the lights. And I wait for morning. If you enjoyed tonight's story, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. If you heard a voice in the woods calling for help, would you answer? Until next time, keep the lights on.